Hey, friends. So, this morning, something was kind of coming through as I was sitting in meditation. And it's interesting because even in the time since it kind of came through this morning, it's like a bunch of other things have trickled in as examples of this experience. And basically, I found myself feeling power as a form of energy that really only exists if there's some space between ourselves and the application of that power. I'm saying this in kind of an abstract way. That's how it initially emerged to me. Basically, what I'm saying is, if we're not relaxed, if there's no space, if there's no sense of room within which to wield power, then our power is diminished. And this is coming through in a very kind of sort of experiential way for me, because I'm somebody who tends, this is not my only way of behaving, but I tend toward really intense pushes of energetic exertion where I kind of feel like, I'm right up against the surface of the universe. I'm just like this spearhead, like flying through space, like taking on wind resistance. And there's this sense of driving into the future in a kind of relentless way, which sometimes can be exhilarating, but which frequently can be exhausting. And what I was sort of feeling this morning as an impression in meditation was, what if I'm chasing power? What if and I'm using power as a kind of, as a term of to denote command of my life, command of the resources I need to sustain myself and to sustain the people around me, and just nourished and in control of my own growth and evolution. I've done several posts in the past, even reaching back. I remember doing posts really early on as I was starting out with this post about claiming our power and the kind of psychological barriers we can construct around truly owning our power. And as some of that has given way to being more willing to claim my power, now I find myself working with, well, how does this actually work? How do I actually command my own power in the most effective way? And I think what I'm tracking in this current realization is a tendency to overexert and to hope that by exertion I will achieve or arrive at a feeling of empowered manifestation, but that's not how it works. I'm not getting there that way. And the notion that I might sit back and allow certain things to happen and still be in control, but it's almost like I could see myself going from a kind of like pressed right up against my intentions place to backing up a little bit and saying, okay, now I have some space between myself and my intentions. What do I really want to do with it? How do I really want to carve into the world with my intention? And the primary revelation in all of it was that relaxing and settling back, slowing down, is a big factor in creating the space to then really have a sense of command and a sense of power, and to being able to use power effectively. We can only use power effectively with some perspective. So then when I talked about earlier, like all these other layers of my life kind of cascading in, there's something that has been coming up even on piano recently. And I feel like I fundamentally reframed something for myself as far as how piano technique works, because, you know, I'm somebody who's always been physical. I've loved being physical throughout my life. I loved doing sports when I was younger, and I've had Qigong and yoga in my life for years and years. I've really never had a phase of my life when I didn't have some kind of physical practice. There have been occasional phases where I wasn't really doing anything very deliberately, but for the most part, I've had a physical practice in my life, which has kept me in decent shape over the years. I'm not like some, you know, crazy athlete person, but I feel physically like it's an important part of my life, and it's one that I enjoy continuing to engage with even as I get older. But as it pertains to the piano, you know, as far as like moving piano keys up and down, my body is strong. I have plenty of power to do that. So I've tended to approach it from the point of view of I use my strength, and it flows out of my body into my arms, and then eventually down my fingers into the keys. And there are limitations to that approach, because it's beginning with the larger part of the exertive mechanism, and then hoping to effectively channel these larger muscle groups, these larger force impulses down into the tiny little fingertips in a kind of articulate and fine way, so that results in powerful piano playing. I'm not sure that's ever going to work that way. So then I was reading Madeline's book a couple weeks ago, and there's this beautiful phrase where she talks about all motion, all force that is directed into the keys is initiated by the fingertips. The fingertips move first. That's where the motion starts. That's where the impulse starts. And then I'm paraphrasing what she said, but she said that the fingertips initiate the movement, and then the muscles of the arms and back are recruited according to the necessities of the phrase of whatever we're playing. So the smallest, most delicate, most fine part of our mechanism initiates the movement and recruits the necessary power from the larger muscle groups, from the rest of the body, basically. That's a complete flip in how to think about strength or power at the piano. at least for me, I don't know if that's a flip for everybody, but for me, that turns my approach on its head. And what I realized when I read that was it turns my approach on its head, and my approach wasn't even that conscious before. I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing. But that's what I was doing. And upon reading such a finely defined description of how this is supposed to work, I realized, oh, yeah, I'm not sure I'm doing that. I think I'm coming from where I feel powerful and trying to hopefully funnel that down into the fine areas of, the actual like contact points, because what contacts the keys? It's not my elbow, it's your fingers that contact the keys. Any power we generate ultimately has to go down through these tiny little fingertips. So when that switch flipped in my mind, I was like, oh, I should really think about this. I should really, and it makes sense to me that when I'm playing a Chopin etude, I'm working on a Chopin etude or whatever difficult technical piece, I'm using all this power and I'm feeling like I'm getting such a workout. Oh man, this is really, really hard. No shit, it's hard. You're like phenomenally overpowering the portion of the mechanism that's actually doing the work. What if instead we let the smallest member of that, the smallest and most directly in contact member of that team, if you consider like all of these muscles in my arm and back, a team, let the smallest member and the front line people determine what gets recruited, determine how much is activated in the rest of our body. That's a beautiful metaphor also for power in general, and it's kind of comes back to what I was saying before, this like pushing and driving feeling of just being blasted through reality by an intensity of emotion or intention is ultimately a really limited, ultimately there's much less power being wielded in that way. There's much less space. There's not the necessary room to actually maneuver and create an intention and move in that way. So again, what I was feeling this morning was not really related to piano, and it was kind of its own revelation that was really felt like it was more applicable to my life in general and my perspective and my approach to all of life. But then this beautiful allegory emerged in my thinking about piano technique and how the subtlest, most sensitive member of the team initiates the motion, and that subtlest, most direct member of the team, the smallest member of the team, determines what everyone else does. And in that way, we truly are able to use the power we have. We are actually, because our power knows what it's serving. Our power actually is not just like throwing a bunch of force at something, hoping that that's going to somehow produce the result. That immense power can read and track what's necessary, what's being requested, and deliver only that. That's a different world. That's a whole other level of skillful engagement in life, on the piano, or wherever. So I offer that in whatever way it may apply to your life, or however that may strike us, but it certainly felt like a big one for me. Thanks, folks. Much love. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. I enjoy this dialogue as always. Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow.